Mr. David Krayden, what's going on?
Well, I've been so absorbed in my ostrich story and the ramifications of Charlie Kirk because I work for Human Events, where Charlie Kirk was a contributing editor, which I thought I should have been on your show last week to talk about this because I was probably closer to Kirk than anybody on that show
Mhm.
because I work for the same media outlet and I know the same people. So it's funny because I have communicated with a lot of folks at that outlet, and they've really been affected by things to the point that it's just very difficult for them to do some of the daily things they need to do. And it's been a seminal moment for so many people. I didn't. I was shocked, of course, when it happened, but I don't think I anticipated the consequences and the fact that we're still in this maze of reporting right now about how it happened. It's more confusing than the JFK assassination. So, but
It's pretty surprising that it hasn't stopped. Huh? It has overtaken the media for the past week now.
well,
It seems
it
like
has,
everything
and
else is removed from the media now.
because we've got two huge events going on here. Usually I'm able to get a lot of U.S. coverage on, and the first, of course, is Saturday's Million People March,
Mhm.
which is organized out of Ottawa, but it's cross country, and it's Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Jews all getting together to oppose transgender ideology in the schools and indoctrination in the schools. And it's the third annual. They've always been huge successes, and I'm very fortunate. I've managed to get on the last hour, not the whole hour, but in the last hour, I've redacted tomorrow to talk about it, as well as an update on what's happening to Katie with the ostriches, and because it's been very hard to get any sort of breaks with the U.S. media in the last week because of Charlie Kirk. It's just totally dominated the reporting right now, and and I'm seeing the same sort of coverage that occurred after Donald Trump's first assassination attempt in terms of 100 different angles and who was the shooter. Was he a decoy? Was he shot in the back? Was he shot in the back of the head? Was that an exit wound, not an entry wound? And we're going in. Was Mossad involved? And it's getting larger every day. And I was watching Redacted tonight, and it just never seems to get any simpler. So I'm very fortunate. I've been able to get the coverage I have over on some of these issues in the last week. And Katie Passadney from the Universal Ostrich Farms was actually on Redacted last week to talk about everything from a firsthand perspective. So I was very happy to see that. And Clayton was quite touched, and he relayed the story to a number of his close friends, including Tucker Carlson, who is interested, but he better be interested real quick because things are getting pretty dark on that farm right now, and they're waiting for a response from the Supreme Court. They've appealed to the Supreme Court to hear the case to stop the killing, and they've got no response. But you'll show that video whenever tonight that shows you the federal government is obviously, well, the Carney liberals. Let's not say federal government. The Carney liberals are doing their best to intimidate Katie and her family with military helicopters shining lights on them at all hours of the night, and they're trying to scare away the witnesses who are there right now. There's about 40 people in sight, so it. I'm disgusted with the whole thing right now. Just completely disgusted.
Where do you want to start? Because I know you wanted to talk about the ostrich farm. Obviously, I have the video loaded up, so as soon as we're ready, we'll play it. You wanted to talk about Chrystia Freeland. And obviously, you and I did not speak last week, so I definitely want to get your take on Charlie Kirk, but not necessarily the assassination itself and what's coming out of it, as in, is that really the killer? Is it Mossad that did it?
No, we
But
could no that we can go on all night about that. That's
yeah, but
you
I'm
know
more interested in picking your brains. Let's start with that because it's been everywhere, but the part I'd like to get your opinion on is the aftermath, because we covered the event live when it happened last week, and my first thoughts was, once again the media is going to use that, like, whoever did it. You can believe in conspiracy theories like I do, or you don't, but at the end of the day, we knew that the media would use that to continue the divide between the left and the right. That's what I was expecting. Like the conservative and let's say the Fox News of the world, they painted Charlie as a martyr, like he was the perfect martyr. And then the left was, oh, there you go, the right's going to become violent again, like it's in their temperament to get violent when they're the ones that always get violent. So when I started seeing that, I was like, they're going to try to further the divide. But what's interesting is you see somebody like Rachel Gilmore that posted one of the dumbest posts I've ever seen, and she got backlash from Andrew Scheer. Like, Andrew Scheer went directly after her politely, but said, like, you're full of hate. And then her post went viral. She went into hiding for a few days because she couldn't deal with the backlash. But what seems to be happening right now is that the woke left is separating, like, the leftists, like my co-host, that call themselves a common sense leftist or a common sense liberal, are separating themselves from the woke, as in, hey, it's one thing to disagree on something, and it's one thing to say that it's okay or to celebrate the assassination of someone. We will not stand for that. And you start looking at the reports, just in Canada, they're estimating that at least 600 people lost their jobs for posting celebration videos of his assassination. So it looks like, and we all know that as somebody that's had employees in the past, I would never hire a liberal. We wouldn't get along. Like, it just wouldn't work. So you know that the people that are firing them are not conservatives. They're just regular people that are like, you're not the type of employee that I wanted working for my company. So what's your thoughts? Are you starting to see, because I'm seeing personally the left kind of splitting. Finally, the more common sense leftists are looking at the woke left and they're like, hey, whoa, you guys are going too far. And
Well,
where else are they going to start looking, right? They're going to start looking to us, the conservatives, and just like, man, have you guys been right all along? Like, is that really what's happening?
Couple of things, Nico. Rachel Gilmore didn't have to go into hiding. She's not really that important, and nobody really has any designs on her in a violent way. And she staked out her political ground, is what she did, which a lot of, a lot of so-called pundits do that. They don't really believe anything they're saying. They just stake out their political ground, and it's a con job. And that's all Rachel Gilmore is about. She's staked out a leftist political ground. She sticks to it. She says outrageous things. And, this whole thing of going into hiding, I mean, give me a break. It's all nonsense. We know it's nonsense. Rachel Gilmore knows it's nonsense. But here's, and before I get to your question there, the thing for me is, in the aftermath here, we have to separate between people being fired by private businesses that say, hey, you're not welcome here anymore because you're an idiot. You're demented. We don't want you here. And infringements on, in the United States, the First Amendment, or in Canada, whatever freedom of speech we have left, where the government prosecutes people for what they say. Now, that should not happen. And I think, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General Pam Bondi, yesterday, floating that trial balloon about hate crimes. No, thank you, because we've got that in Canada, and look where it's got us. You can't say it. You can't say a bloody thing without being worried someone's going to say, "Oh, that's hateful. You offended me." The United States is more grown up than that. I hope they never get to the point where it's hateful to insult me, and I'm going to get you in court for this. Or the Attorney General is going to start going after everybody who said something hateful about Charlie. No, but firing, that's a whole different thing. Go ahead, fire them. I really don't care, because it's exactly what happened to Cracker Barrel. You think they really wanted to do that? No, they said, hey, we better change because our clientele is largely small C conservatives, Republicans, and we better change. We better get back to normal here, or else we're going to lose customers. So, that's what happened about all this. And I think the reaction from conservatives when a prominent liberal dies or is attacked is never like this. I don't know any
No,
conservative goes on social media and says, "Good, get it, get them, get them."
no,
Let's
no.
so the pile on mentality. I thought the other day, and it's probably not a great example, but Hollywood liberal Robert Redford passed away on Friday
Yep.
last week,
Mhm.
and I went on my broadcast and I said, I didn't agree with Robert Redford politically. I really thought he was not right on climate change and a lot of other issues. I said, but he touched my life as an actor and director. I loved his movies, and the world is less of a place without Robert Redford.
Good for you.
And I don't know any conservative who would say, "Good, I'm glad to see another damn liberal die," because that's just not in our DNA. But it seems to be cemented in the DNA of woke liberals, woke Democrats, and woke capital L liberals in Canada who are crazy. And I long for the days, and I grew up in an age when my teachers, a lot of them were from the 1960s. They're radicals from the 1960s, they're hippies, but they believed in free speech.
Yep.
And they used to, they would say something in class and they would literally point to me and say, "David, do you have anything to say about this?" Because they knew I'd disagree. And yeah, I'd say, "Well, I really can't agree with you there, and this is why." But they respected free speech, and they allowed me to talk about a different version of the facts. And if I presented that, say, in an essay, they wouldn't say, "We're gonna give you an F because it's not what we believe in." No, I
Yeah.
still got an A on an essay the teacher didn't agree with because he believed in free speech and freedom of expression. And I hope there's going to be a bifurcation in the liberal elites or in the liberal masses between demented liberals who are out there just sowing incredible seeds of discord and normal liberals who say, "Well, we didn't agree, but I respect what the fact that you stood for you had the honesty and the integrity to stand for principles." And I hope we see more as we see more of that, because I don't think if this was a plot, if this was a plan to turn the conservative movement or libertarians or conservatives into angry animals, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because the response has been quite the opposite. These tributes to Charlie Kirk have been, once again, when
Mhm.
evangelicals or Christians or small c conservatives get together, it's not a hate fest. It's not the 2 minutes of hate from 1984. Far from it.
No.
If they lift up Charlie Kirk as what, a martyr or an example of how people should live, or they lift up the name of Jesus Christ if it's a largely evangelical group. And that's what these are all about. And that drives the liberals or the woke liberals crazy, because that's not the reaction they want. They want conservatives to go haywire and act as demented as they are. So the consequences have been fabulous. Even if you don't talk about the 101 different variations and versions and theories we have right now on how Charlie Kirk was actually shot or why, the consequences are a whole different matter, and I think they've been largely positive.
You know what's very interesting is on my other show I record with a liberal, right? I record with somebody that considers himself a liberal, and he had never really knew about Charlie Kirk until he got assassinated. And now, like, everybody on social media, our feeds are being filled with clips of him just being Charlie Kirk, just debating people, having civil discourse. And he's like, "Man, he actually sounded like a super nice guy." I'm like, "Yeah, actually, he did. He was a nice guy. Like, that's what he did, is civil discourse for years. He showed up in enemy territory to go debate leftists in woke institutions that are the indoctrination center of North America, especially the US. And the average liberal had never been exposed to Charlie Kirk outside of the mainstream rhetoric where he's just a far-right Nazi, xenophobe, homophobic. Yet you start looking at his stuff, he's the one that gets hate on. Because a lot of people don't understand or don't realize that he's been at it for, what, 5 to 10 years? He's been doing this since he was a teenager, debating people. And now, now it's easy to look at Turning Point USA and seeing the thousands of people that show up in his favor. But I've been following Charlie Kirk long enough to remember when he showed up to hostile crowds every single time. There was no supporters for him. He just showed up enemy territory, and it's amazing to see. It's a shame that it took his death for the regular leftists to wake up, or at least to start waking up. But I don't know if I should be saying this, but it looks like his death is gonna do even more changes than he did during his lifetime, which is insane when you think about it.
Well, I've heard a lot of people say that, including my own pastor at my church said that on Sunday. But this has been a hallmark of conservatives throughout the ages, even as the definition of conservative has changed over the years as to what that belief system is. I think of William F. Buckley Jr., who is a huge influence in my life. His writings, watching Firing Line every week on PBS, and here's a guy who always was civil to his guests, even if he would say, your life has been marked by an unalloyed egotism or thing. He said it in such a nice way and graceful way that nobody was ever felt like this guy is trying to destroy me. And of course, when Buckley passed, there were such tributes because he had friends who were liberals that didn't agree with things. He had friends in the media who were liberals that didn't agree with him, but they respected him, and they respected his courage and his integrity and his intellect. And that's been a hallmark of conservatism over the decades, and I want that to continue, and I think that's a lesson of Charlie Kirk here, and it's heartening to me that the reaction has been as it has been, and listening to you there though, you reminded me how in the beginning for Charlie Kirk the crowds could be quite hostile, but isn't it ironic? Nobody took a shot at Charlie Kirk with those hostile crowds. He was in Utah. This is Mormon country. Couldn't have had a more, I don't want to say docile, but a more agreeable audience. And that's when this tragedy occurred, which makes me wonder what in the hell is really going on here. But it just seems too fabricated for my senses. And I know there's more here than we know right now. But the irony alone, to me, is very compelling.
What I found to be extremely interesting is, I'm 43 years old. Charlie Kirk's content was not for me. I already knew everything he was talking about. I already agreed with most of the stuff that he's ever said. But the target audience was really the 16 to 24, the kids that are going through high school, going through college. They're surrounded by woke ideologies, and they're discovering that they don't agree with it, that they're more conservative. And Charlie Kirk's legacy is that he made it okay to be a conservative. It was okay for you to have conservative values, and he represented that by being able to have civil discourse with people that hated on him. And it's a brilliant thing. What he was able to do, I don't know of any other content creator or anybody in the US right now that could take the torch. Like a lot of people, like Ben Shapiro said he would do it, which he does not have what it takes to do what Charlie Kirk did. Alex Jones of all people is like, I'm gonna start going to campuses too. I'm like, wow, that is interesting. Alex Jones doing that, but there's nobody to carry the torch really. But did you see the estimates? They were saying that when Charlie Kirk was alive, they had about 1,200 chapters throughout the US, like in high school and colleges. It's around 1,200. And his goal was to have 35,000. That was his, 3,500, sorry. That was his goal. Yeah. Within 48 hours, they had 32,000 applications for new chapters in the US. 32,000 in 48 hours. It's insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, that was incredible. And I agree that Ben Shapiro is completely unsuited for this job. He's annoying as hell with his machine gun delivery. I don't think he relates to anybody under 45, actually. And I cannot really, I can't believe the gall of this ego-driven individual to suggest he's going to pick up that blood-stained mic and carry on if he thinks he's going to take over Turning Point USA, he's got another thing coming. But if he thinks even if he's going to take over Charlie Kirk's role, he is highly deluded.
You remember of Milo Yiannopoulos? Do you remember
I
that
sure
guy?
do. Oh yeah,
Because
yeah.
Logan White has commented on it, because I think I follow him on Instagram. Like, I've been following him forever, but he disappeared, right? For the longest time, he completely disappeared from the face of the earth. But this week, I think it's this week or last week, he posted, "I'm back." So he wants to start doing what Charlie Kirk was doing again. He doesn't have it. It's not gonna be the same flavor. There's nobody else like Charlie Kirk right now.
No, too much baggage with Milo. Yeah, I remember. I know why he went into hiding. There's
I don't
there's no
remember why.
mystery there.
Why
No,
was it?
it was all the baggage he carried around with his sexuality. I won't go into any more
Hmm.
detail on it, but there was a lot there. It was very highly problematic, and he was basically completely discredited for quite some time, and was yeah, he was the flavor of the month. I guess I'll put it that way. And he's not coming back. Charlie Kirk had an unimpeachable character. I mean, this was a
Hmm.
married guy with two kids. Uh, almost like Billy Graham. He was unimpeachable with his personal conduct. And you need that sort of person that has the character and that is living a real Christian life if you're talking about these things, much like Billy Graham exhibited through his whole life. And not that Charlie Kirk was an evangelist, but it was difficult to separate it at times because he preached Christianity as much as he preached conservative politics. And to do that effectively, you've got to walk the walk. And so you need somebody like Charlie Kirk, and then that's quite obvious, I think. But so I don't know who if there is an obvious successor. There certainly isn't, because I can't think of anybody right now. But I don't think Alex Jones can bridge that generation
No,
gap.
that's
But
no. But there's gonna be 1,000 Charlie Kirk that are gonna pop out because the need is there. If there's 32,000 new chapters that were interested in joining Turning Point USA, there's gonna be a rise in the type of individuals that Charlie Kirk. We have the blueprint now. We know what they look like. We don't have to invent Charlie Kirk. We know what to base it on. But what's very, very cool about Charlie Kirk, if you look at him or you look at what he did, he was a bridge. He was not a pastor. He wasn't there to preach, but he was able to relate his values and connect them to Christian values. He was able to show people that the reason he taught the way he did is because of his Christian values, of his Christian beliefs. Because if you look at what he talked about, he was always saying that first and foremost, he's a Christian. He's a father and a husband after, and then whatever comes, whatever we know him for, came after him being, but first and foremost was being a Christian. And that's what was brilliant about him. He was not a preacher, but he was a bridge. He could show you what it was to live a Christian life, to be able to do the civil debates that he did. And if you wanted to know why he did it, he would point to you to Christianity. That is why I do what I do, because that's what I believe in. It's brilliant. What he did was absolutely brilliant. And I'd be curious to see how many people have explored Christian values because of the way Charlie Kirk was. Just the way that he presented stuff and never really preached. It was brilliant. He knew what he was doing. He was not a stupid man, that's for sure.
No. And I think his legacy will be very secure.
Agreed. You touched on something else before we go to the subjects you wanted to talk about, because obviously Pam Bundy did put her foot in her mouth yesterday saying that she wanted to go after hate speech after what happened to Charlie Kirk. It's not okay to disrespect him or to hate on what he did. And it's funny because I was watching a video earlier, it's from Fox News, but they were able to find an old tweet from Charlie Kirk himself saying that there's no such thing as hate speech. No such thing as hate speech. And then they started playing videos when he actually breaks it down to say it does not exist. First and foremost, free speech. First and foremost, whatever. There's no gray area in free speech. It's an absolute. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah, that's right. The First Amendment in the United States exists to protect hate speech, and that's clear. That's what it's all about. We've had hate speech laws in this country since John Turner was Justice Minister under Pierre Trudeau. That's when those laws entered the criminal code. I was shocked to discover that when I was doing an article one time on hate speech and why it's so corrosive, why it's so toxic, and it just keeps on spreading to the point where we are scared in as hell in this country of offending anybody because we might be facing a hate speech charge. And the cops are just so willing to slap this on anybody that they see in their way, and it's nothing but a gross violation of freedom of speech and basic human rights. And we and I want to see I want to see some politician in this country stand up and say, I'm going to scrap the hate speech laws. Anybody got the balls in this country to do that? Well, I can think of one premier who
Oh
possibly has
yeah.
the courage, and that might be Premier Daniel Smith. Nobody else in this country would even mention it because, oh, that's off limits. We can't say that. And I'm sick of a country where we can't talk about things in the public forum.
Mhm.
I can't talk about abortion. Can't talk about LGBTQ over promotion. We can't talk about hate speech. Can't talk about those things. That's off limits. That's when a country is going down the tube. And that's what's happening in Canada. We are going down an authoritarian tube, have quite some time. And when I look at question period, Nico, which I follow every day because I have to, not only for my own broadcast, but for the media outlets I work for, I'm just disgusted. I can't stand much more of it. Like it's
No.
just a gross a charade.
Mhm.
It is a horrible bit of theatrics.
Yep.
Where I don't know who's serious anymore about anything except getting their mug on the evening news. And that's all it really has to do with anything anymore.
It turned into wrestling. It's like the WWE. You all know it's a show, you all know it's fake, but yet somehow we're watching it. Unfortunately. But what do you think of did you hear about the new bill that the liberals are talking about dropping this week to protect religious environment, like to protect religious worship, to protect religious places, and even public places? Like they want to drop a bill. It hasn't been dropped yet. It hasn't been tabled. They're talking about it. Mainstream media is reporting on it. It's been hinted at it. It is about hate versus religion, like against religious groups. And it's supposed to be tabled this week. I'm very curious to see it because I'm going to do a deep dive with the guys from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. I will read the whole bill and look into it myself and do a deep dive with probably John Carpe. And have you heard of it? Have you heard of the bill?
Yeah, and definitely John Carpe will be on this. I'm very worried and nervous about any liberal bill that purports to protect religion. That's not what they're all about. This is
No.
obviously it's going to be an extension of hate. So don't go
Oh, yeah.
near a church or a synagogue or a temple of any kind. And I'm sure it's got something to do with proselytizing, or it's going to make proselytizing illegal. I'm sure that's what the guts of this bill is. I'm guessing. I don't know that, but I am positive that's where it's going to aim, because that will be seen as hateful. And it's going what the liberals want to do is put a sock in everybody's mouth so nobody
Yep.
talks to anybody else. And they want to isolate people in their communities, and they want to play the identity politics card as much as they can. Mark Carney's as bad at that, or as good at that, as adept
Yeah.
at that. It's just
He's
true
good.
liberals. Yeah.
But you haven't heard anything behind the scene. You don't have any privy knowledge that I don't have.
No, like I say, my gut reaction is it's going to be aimed at proselytizing, in other words, conversion, because they don't want people to talk about their faith with anybody else. I think that's what it's going to be aimed at.
I'm very curious. I'm very, very curious to see what they're going to do. But soon enough, it was supposed to be dropped yesterday. It wasn't tabled, so hopefully it is tabled this week, because I'm for Fraser to talk about it and for mainstream media to already talk about it, yet we haven't seen the bill. This is not good news. if mainstream media is talking about something that hasn't been announced, at least I didn't hear about it, it's scary. It worries me. Those things definitely worry me. So we'll see. We'll see what it is, but I got a feeling it's not going to be good. If it's anything like Bill C2, it ain't going to be good.
And it's gonna be another moment of indecision for the official opposition. Do we side with the government or do we oppose it?
The thing I'm wondering if they're gonna turn it into another Bill C-63, the hate speech, the online hate speech act. And this is what I'm wondering, if they're gonna try to copy a bit what was in that bill and try to pass it as hate speech towards religions. Because the end goal is the same. It's to censor us, right? But BCL63 doesn't exist anymore because of the 6 months break that they took between December 17th and the end of April. So they have to bring it back. We know that there's going to be another censorship bill that's going to come in from the liberals. They're never going to drop that ball. But I wonder if that's not it. That's why I'm curious to see it.
As an evangelical Christian, Nico, I don't want to be immune from criticism. I don't want to be immune from attack. I don't want to be in my little fortress where nobody can touch me and I can't touch anybody else. And that's what the liberal socialist woke agenda is all about. Keep people apart, protect them from other people, and keep them separate. And I'm sick of a country like this. But I think you're probably right. They will cloak this attack on freedom of speech under the guise of protecting religion. So make us all immune from criticism because it's hateful, man. And you don't want that. This is how tricky and devious and mendacious this liberal carny government is.
And he's not stupid, right? I think we can both agree that Carney, unlike Trudeau, is not stupid. He knows what he's doing. Read his book. He's evil. He's brilliant, but he's absolutely evil, but he ain't stupid. You can't underestimate him. It's going to be interesting, not. That's for sure.
100%.
You wanted to talk about the ostrich farm in BC. That's a big subject that you're always covering. And you have a video. You sent me a video, so I have it loaded. You want to listen to it now?
Yeah, let's put it on now, and I might say a few things because it's not constant action, but
please comment over it. Yeah, explain to us what we're looking at, actually.
I mean, those look like orbs there, but this is not ghost hunters.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
That's
funny.
That's the BC night on the farm in epic British Columbia near Kelowna. Beautiful, beautiful place. And this is Universal Ostrich Farms. And Katie sent me this morning. Katie Passadney, who's the spokeswoman and the daughter of the mother co-owner of Universal Ostrich Farms. She's been doing a tremendous job at getting the word out to media around the world about what's happening at this farm. And she sent me this video this morning. She also sent it to my good friend Clayton Morris at Redacted and Rebel News and other agencies. So the helicopter, a military helicopter, as far as they could see, shining lights down on the farm. And this is late at night. And it as you watch this, you can see it intensifies. Yeah, there you go. Here comes the spotlight. And of course, you think, what are they doing this for? Well, this is raw intimidation. Incredible. They're trying to instill fear in these people's minds and hearts. And they're trying to tell them, why don't you just leave the farm? Why don't you just vacate your property? Because we're going to take it over. And you can see in the left-hand side here, there's another helicopter coming in. And but what the goal here is to get them off of the farm so the authorities can get onto the farm easily without, and the lights are getting brighter here.
Jesus, Jesus.
So you can see here that this is a liberal government, and this is the I lay this blame entirely on Mark Carney's shoulders because he's obviously aware of this. Heath MacDonald is the agriculture minister. He has said not a word about this. We've heard more from the Secretary of Health and Human Services in the United States, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has complained about this twice now. And I understand that there's a remote possibility that Donald Trump could still get personally involved in this, from what I'm hearing from sources in Canada as well as the U.S., that there's a possibility of Donald Trump getting involved in this. And like I said, Clayton Morris relayed this whole story after he had Katie on the show last week to his very close friend Tucker Carlson, and he said Tucker was very interested in it. And of course, there's just so much competing news going on right now with the aftermath of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It's very hard to get people not to focus on anything else and to focus on this. But this is deliberate interference by the government on private property. And Katie said that they put some tractor lights on themselves to say, hey, we're not going to be intimidated by you. We're not going to put up with this. We're not going to just vacate the farm and allow you to kill our birds. We're not going to allow you to destroy our livelihood without a fight. So this is
That's
a very
them
sinister,
again, right?
Yeah, this is a very sinister government, and to do this to people, totally unprovoked, by the way. There has been no backlash from the farm in terms of any sort of public activity beyond that in the courts. They have appealed to justice. They have appealed to the courts. They have not in any way put any federal government employee in danger. They've intimidated nobody. They threatened nobody. They have just merely said, we're just trying to preserve the lives of 399 healthy ostriches that have not demonstrated any signs of any avian flu for almost a year now. And this is all about government control. And this is why this story fascinates me so much, compels me, and why I have such empathy and sympathy for this family. Because this is just brutal government interference and an attempt to take over a farm, to kill the livestock, to destroy the livelihood, because it didn't start here, Nico. This has been going on for 10 years. The federal government, I've had Jerry Ritz on my show several times, a former ag minister with Stephen Harper. Jerry was a farmer. Jerry understood agriculture, and he still does. And he says, the Trudeau government, and he would say the same. I haven't had him on since Mark Carney was prime minister. He said, Trudeau government's done everything it can to destroy agriculture and destroy the lives of farmers. It has made it impossible to buy fertilizer because they don't want farmers growing crops because it might have an effect on the greenhouse gas emissions. Fertilizer's evil. So farmers are constantly facing more and more regulations, more and more red tape from government, more and more hostility from government. The carbon tax under Trudeau was absolutely devastating for family farms to pay the price of heating. They didn't care. The government did not care. They honestly seem to think the food comes from the grocery store. Nobody has to grow this stuff. Farmers are useless. They don't even understand if agriculture is one of the top industries in Canada. Remove agriculture, and it's almost like removing the energy sector from the Canadian economy. But these people don't get that. They just think they're in the way. And where have we heard that one before? Well, I think you have to go back to Stalinist Russia, where the farmers were in the way of Soviet progress. They were in the way of where the communist vision was. So they killed them and they got rid of them. And they collectivized their farms. And what happened? They had famine and they had disaster. And that's what's coming for Canada. We won't even be able to feed our own people, let alone feed the world, which is what Canada's been doing for over almost 100 years. We have been feeding the world, but we won't even be able to feed our own people. if this government continues to harass, intimidate, persecute, and prosecute farmers who are, as far as I'm concerned, essential, not just to the economy, but to living, to breathing, to staying alive in this country. And we've got a government that's so stupid they can't even see the common sense in that.
One of the things that the average individual doesn't understand too is that if you're in an urban center, your grocery store is 24 to 48 hours away from having nothing on the shelves. That's how often food is brought in. Products are brought in every 24 to 48 hours maximum. There's food brought in. So you literally 2 days, there's no more food on your shelves. 2 days. But the average Canadian doesn't understand that.
Can I answer this question from Sheridan Forbes?
Yeah,
why don't they move?
100%. That's why I put it there.
Yeah, why don't they move the birds instead of dealing with the government? Sheridan, they'd be prosecuted for doing that. They cannot move the birds. They can't even test the birds. I mean, let this sink in, because it's hard to believe. If they test one ostrich for any signs of avian flu, they will be sentenced or charged with a potential sentence of 6 months in jail, $20,000 fine. Each bird. So they can't even prove that these birds are healthy, and the government won't test them either. They don't want them to move them. They don't want them to test them. They want to kill them. Because do you know how many chickens they've killed in BC? Millions. Possibly up to 80 million chickens have been killed in BC on suspicion that there might be some avian flu present. Does this have anything to do with the globalist agenda of having us eat insects? They want to, and what's next after chickens? They'll be going after cows because, hey, you know, it's those greenhouse gas emissions, because the cows are really bad for the greenhouse gas, and they'll go after the cows next. And a country that once had a land of plenty will have a land of nothing but insects left, and will be. But of course, people like Mark Carney will always be eating filet mignon and prime rib, because they will be able to live in a different world than the rest of us. Common folk will be forced to inhabit.
The whole thing smells of WEF. The whole thing, to know that those birds have survived avian flu, to have, because Japanese labs were able to test them and confirm that it looked good, right? There was some tests done out of Japan on those ostriches, or at least on the DNA, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, and they were able to determine that, yes, there was the presence of some virus. They haven't even determined absolutely that it was avian flu. But Katie, as Katie says every time she appears in my show or any show, the birds developed herd immunity, as they always have. But that's the crux of the matter. The government doesn't want you to think such a process exists for humans as it does for ostriches, because they want you to take the vaccine. Don't worry about herd immunity. And I was just corrected. It was 8 million chickens were killed in BC in the last year, not 80 million. So thank you for that note. But I've got to tell you this briefly, because I had Naomi Wolf, Dr. Naomi Wolf, on my show yesterday.
Nice.
Huge respect for this woman. I've had her on about 3 or 4 times on my show over the last couple of years. She's just come out with a book called The Pfizer Papers. It documents how Pfizer knew the COVID vaccine was neither safe nor effective. They knew it. Completely documented this in this book, because she's got 3,500 healthcare and scientific experts working on this file. She's absolutely proven that Pfizer knew that the vaccine would not work against COVID, and the vaccine was going to have adverse effects on people. How adverse? Well, that's still being debated, but it's quite possible Pfizer knew exactly how adverse those reactions could be in some people. And I have to be careful what I say on YouTube. I had to move to Rumble to do the whole conversation, because I'm still worried about what I say on YouTube. But this is evidence that why is this happening to these chickens? Why is this happening to these ostriches? It's all part in part. It's all connected. It's all to do with this globalist design to sell vaccinations to the point where we can't even see if natural immunity works anymore because big pharma rules the day. And after millions of people have died, will anybody actually be held accountable? That's the question we can't answer because all of these people are protected after making trillions, hundreds of billions of trillions of dollars off of this pandemic. And it's nauseating. But that's what's happening at the Universal Ostrich Farms. This is all interrelated.
You know, as soon as you have a product that is the vaccine that is protected by government funds, like in Canada, it's VISP, they have the equivalent in the US, they cannot be held accountable for the side effect of their product. What a great business plan. And if they are held responsible, the government will pay the tab. Taxpayers' money is being used to pay people that suffered from an injection that a lot of people were coerced into taking. And you look at the estimates in Canada, you're looking at all the numbers that I'm seeing are between 80 to 91% of Canadians have at least one shot. 80 to 91%. That is insane. That is a massive amount of people. So let's say that it's 80%. Let's take the lower number. That's a lot of people that are going to need help one day.
Yeah.
But talk about a great business model to be able to have a product that you don't care about the side effects because you're not responsible for it. It's insane. It's absolutely insane, but we're okay with this as Canadians. And you're right. They're doing everything that they can in order to make us forget that herd immunity, natural herd immunity, is actually possible. That if you have a good immune system and the virus enters your body by the place, let's say it's a respiratory illness, if it goes through your mouth or your nose, your body will detect it and it will fight it because that is what it was meant to do. That vaccines don't work in the long run. Like, you can believe whatever you want about vaccines, but if you start looking at the products like the aluminum that they have to put in it to shock your body into trying to realize that there's something with that vaccine, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Yet I'm called a conspiracy theory. I get my social media banned for talking about this. And the ostrich farm, I find that story so fascinating because you literally have 399 birds that survived the avian flu. You have the possibility of showing a way to build natural immunity in ostriches. So not only should we be breeding those animals so that all the ostriches in Canada are protected against the avian flu, but even if you don't believe that that's possible, you have Dr. Oz in the US that offered multiple times to take them. He will pay for it. He will bring them to his ranch in Florida. He'll take care of them. RFK Jr. is saying the same thing, that we need to save those birds, yet our government does everything possible to call them. And wasn't just at the end of last week, they went to court once again and they got denied. So now we're just waiting on the day that it's going to happen, but they got denied once again.
It was last Friday, the Federal Court of Appeal announced they would not advance the case. So the farm has gone to the Supreme Court with an appeal there. That's their last chance, barring what should have happened months ago, a political intervention from the Minister of Agriculture or the Prime Minister. And I'm hoping that might happen because of a phone call from Washington, because they often has remarkable tendencies to move Mark Carney in the right direction. Get a phone call from Donald Trump, Mark Carney's up and listening. So that is a possible hope. I don't want to put out false hope, because there could be a tragedy in the making here, and it's going to break my heart as much as it's going to break the heart of those people on Universal Ostrich Farms. And I just feel so badly for them. As Katie told me the other day, it's terrible living in fear of thinking someone's going to come on your farm and steal your livestock. And it's not just livestock; these are like pets to them, because they breed these ostriches for use in science. And when I say science, I don't mean they do horrible experiments on them, but they test them for immunity. That's what they're for. And the government won't let them do that. That's what these ostriches are for, to aid in medical science and to aid so we know more about human immunity. Clear as glass to anybody but the Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
And often that's just the process is the punishment, even if they were to be found by the Supreme Court to say, you know what, you can keep the birds, or we're going to send them to Florida. The process has been going on for what, almost a year now? The punishment is in the process. They've weaponized our justice system to punish dissidents. While even if at the end you're like, oh, you know what, it's okay, you didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, but you've treated me like a criminal for the past year, 2 years, and 3 years. I had to live in fear every single day, and now you're just washing your hands like nothing happens. Nothing happened. That's the problem. Because no matter what happened to those birds, the process was the punishment.
Well, it's funny. Or shall I say, it's appropriate. You should say that, Nico, because I sat in a courtroom last week where Chris Barber was there remotely, but it was a sentencing hearing for his truck. And I think only in Canada, or perhaps some tin pot dictatorship, would you have a sentencing hearing for a truck. And of course, the judge was hearing from the Crown prosecution about why they should have the right to steal Chris Barber's truck, Big Red, which is an iconic symbol of the Freedom Convoy. And why should they have the right to this forfeiture? Well, they argued it had so much to do with this horrible crime that Chris Barber committed by being a member of the protest. And it's difficult to sit there and think I'm living on another planet. These people can't be serious. But as Chris said afterwards, this could go on after the judge sentences Tamara and I, because this could go on and on for months. This is already the longest mischief trial in Canadian history. It's literally 2 years and 1 month. 2 years and 1 month by the time they get sentenced on October 7th. But then it could take another 2-3 months to decide what to do with Chris's truck. This country's gone insane, Nico. The judicial system is insane. They would rather spend years going after, prosecuting, persecuting, putting through lawfare people like Tamara Leach and Chris Barber than they would going after rapists and carjackers and killers. And that's called a narco-tyranny. That's the definition of a narco-tyranny. When you've got a government like this that would rather persecute its political opponents and put them in jail than it would put criminals in jail. And that's what the Carney government's all about.
Just today, we'll take a few minutes to talk about Chrystia Freeland, but just to prove your point, you remember the Jewish guy that got beat up in Montreal last month?
Yes.
His judgment came out today. Nothing. He's not going to be criminally prosecuted because he had a mental illness episode. So he's under watch, I think, for 30 days in a mental institution. And they're going to probably end up releasing him. And the same thing, I don't know if you remember this, a few months ago, there was this there's this French woman out of Quebec where she left her kid in the U.S., like somewhere around Ontario. She literally, 3-year-old, she dropped her off on the side of the road and she left. She went back home. They took 3 days to find her. Her, again, 2 days ago, was found non-criminally responsible because she had an episode. This is what we're doing. So you got a mother that abandoned her 3-year-old. Luckily, she survived, but she's traumatized, obviously. And then you have a guy that beats up somebody on camera. You have the proof. You literally have the recording. But he wasn't responsible. Then you have Chris Barber and Tamara Leach that held a freedom rally that organized Canada, and they're looking at 7 and 8 years in prison. You have pedophiles that are guys that are trying to sleep with a 15-year-old, but it turns out it was a police officer undercover. Oh, you know what? It's okay. We're not going to give you any criminal sentencing because we wouldn't want that to impact your citizenship application. Or you have justice that are telling us that, oh, you only had a modest amount of child pornography, so we're gonna let you go. But they're bringing down the hammer on Chris Barber. It's insane. We live in a we are seeing the process. You know, in 1984, you start the story, you're already in the dystopian government, like the dystopian life. You don't know. I've always wondered since I read that book every couple of years, and I'm always, hey, how did they get there? I know exactly how they got there because we're going through it right now.
We're living it. You bet.
Yeah. So what do you want to say about Chrystia Freeland outside of, did you want to celebrate her accomplishments? Is that what you wanted to do?
Well, I joked today. It's the Freeland Follies. Oh, and she's been working for Ukraine for the last 10 years. I mean, that's exactly where she should be going because she's not been working for Canada. She's been working for Ukraine. And there's, she's been caught at Ukrainian rallies where they've got these pro-Nazi Waffen-SS units in Ukraine. And her grandfather was a propagandist for the Nazis in Poland. And I'm not calling Chrystia Freeland a Nazi. I don't like her politics, but she is so willing to gloss over the incredible cracks in the Ukrainian regime. It's run by a dictator named Volodymyr Zelensky. It's one of the most corrupt regime in all of Europe, not just Eastern Europe, all of Europe. And he has profited off of this military and administrative assistance that he's received from the United States, Canada, and all European countries, especially those who belong to NATO, to the tune of, God knows, over $1 billion at least. He's got a vineyard in Italy. He reportedly, according to Colonel Douglas McGregor, who I've had on my show a number of times, he's got a great little place just south of Naples, Florida. And he's got a personal jet gassed up and ready to go on the runway whenever he thinks it's getting too hot. So Chrystia Freeland is going to be sent to the black hole of Kiev with all of this illicit money circulating. My God, she's going to have the time of her life working for Ukraine. And get this, she's the special envoy for reconstruction. Well, it didn't work too well in the old South, actually, but it's not even going to be applicable to Ukraine. There's not going to be any reconstruction there by NATO or Canada or the US or any country in Europe. When that war is over, believe me, it's not going to be occupied by NATO peacekeepers. It's going to be the end of Ukraine unless they get a peace deal real quick. And Zelensky's not interested in getting a peace deal. He does not want the war to stop. He just wants to keep collecting the money that he's getting from around the world. And when it's time to leave, he'll be gone. He'll be gone. But Chrystia Freeland, she'll be going to Ukraine and saying everything's great. But I have a feeling it's going to be a very short posting. A very short posting. I don't think she's going to be in Kiev very long. And she won't have a chance to do any reconstruction because that's not going to be done by anybody in Canada or any NATO country.
Have you heard of the Advantage Ukraine project?
I can't say I have, no.
It's a project that's been going on that is responsible for rebuilding Ukraine after the war. And surprise, surprise, Brookfield has been in talks with them for months. I have a post right now of Advantage Ukraine from 1 year ago saying that they were meeting with Brookfield in order to discuss the reconstruction of Ukraine, because a lot of people don't know, but Brookfield has massive investments in an IT park in Ukraine, and this is the next project. So to me, when I heard about Chrystia Freeland leaving, she's hiding from the fact that she approved that loan for that $1 billion transaction for BC Ferries for China, and now Mark Scarney is giving her a special envoy role to represent Brookfield's interest in Ukraine. I guarantee you this. I have no proof of what I'm saying outside of I'm connecting the dot because they are in talks with the Advantage Ukraine project. So to me, it's okay. Don't worry. You can quit your job. Here's a bunch of money and go do Brookfield's bidding in the Ukraine. That's what I'm seeing.
When Mark Carney revealed he had 103, well, actually, it wasn't Mark Carney. When it was revealed that Mark Carney had 103 conflicts of interest, did anything change, Nico?
Nope.
Did he say, you're right, I better do something about this right away because people might think I'm compromised? He did absolutely nothing. So he's still got 103 different conflicts of interest. He's still got money spread around the world, especially in the US. He has still got his tentacles everywhere, especially in green energy projects and possibly even in Advantage Ukraine and possibly even in affordable housing in Canada because he's
13
got
billion
his interest everywhere.
Modular.
So
it's called modular. If you look, MODULAIRE. Brookfield has bought a company that specializes. It's called Modular. It specializes in modular homes, but that's just a coincidence. It has nothing to do with the $13 billion that they just announced to build. What was it? 4,000 new units. They end up costing like $3.25 million. But don't worry about that. This is all a coincidence. I'm just a conspiracy theorist that's connecting the dots here.
Conspiracy theorists, yes. Well, today's conspiracy theorist is tomorrow's political fact. So,
you know the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth? About 6 months. About 6 months.
Yeah. This is the most corrupt regime we've ever had in Canada. It's beyond imagination. He's still riding at what, 58% approval rating? I can't fathom how stupid Canadians are. They just think, go ahead, take us to the cleaners. And that's exactly what Mark Carney is doing. That's his design. That's his intention. I would love to sit across the table from Mark Carney, totally incognito. So, of course, he has no idea who I am or what I do. Sip a martini with him and say, Mark, you're really putting one over on Canadians, aren't you? And to hear him say, you betcha, you betcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's the real Mark Carney. That's the real Mark Carney.
David, once again, thank you for your time. We've been going for 1 hour and 2 minutes, so we're bang on. I appreciate your time. Great video for the ostrich farm, by the way. I'm going to share that, I think, tomorrow on my social because I haven't seen that anywhere else. But thanks for your thoughts. Thanks for all the comments, all the people that have been commenting the whole time. We appreciate every single one of you, and we'll see you next week at 6:30 Eastern time.
Okay, thanks
again,
Nico.
David.
Always a hell of a time talking to you.
Always a pleasure, brother.
Bye-bye.